Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Siddharth Jhunjhunwala with us today. Am I pronouncing that right, Sid?
You're exactly right. That's
Jhunjhunwala. You're the
yeah,
first Jhunjhunwala on this
yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
Sid is the founder and CEO at SpiderX AI, leading with Voice AI. It's not his first company, so Sid, I would describe him as a serial entrepreneur. Spends time between Singapore, London, the Bay Area, and so forth. All about I guess like a music, golfing as well, AI, of course, right? So we're going to talk about his various companies today and what he's achieved in the past decades as an entrepreneur. And this podcast is brought to you by bookridegpt.com. If you want to have an AI book for you, taking your LinkedIn posts, converting them to a Kindle book, you can go to bookridegpt.com. The first credit is on me. So Sid, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Thanks for the tee off. So yeah, I grew up in India. I have always been an entrepreneur. That's how the culture that I was brought on. It was always starting something. So not starting something was never an option. So I started my career selling PCs and doing WANs and LANs using normal netware those days when I was 18 in school. And then one of our customers there invested in us, and we started Web Spiders, which is a CX agency. So we do all kinds of customer experience solutions and products for events, for e-commerce, for digital marketing, and that's over more than 2 decades. And for the last 2 years, we're still focused very much on CX, but now from a product side. And SpiderX is essentially a voice first solution bouquet for customer experience across F&B, all kinds of B2B2C kind of use cases. So that's where we are.
Very cool. Well, let's start with web spiders and I guess like scraping, right? Like I'm very much into it as well. I do go to market as a service for clients. I use Apify to pretty much scrape anything that I want on the web. And I think web scraping is still very much under the radar, right? But that's where agents start, right? When you think about it, if you order a chat GPT deep research, for example,
Yeah,
well, it will
yeah,
start scraping the web.
yeah,
And deep research probably one of the best features of ChatGPT right now. Like people still underuse it, not only to get top insights, but also
yeah.
to scrape data, right? Like if I want all the podcast guests of Joe Rogan, for example, I could ask a ChatGPT deep research or Manus, for example, to do it for me. So tell us about like first your fascination with scraping and why did you get specifically into that industry?
I mean, just to correct, Web Spiders was more of a software and digital services company. So it was more of an agency where we did offer scraping as one of the services, but we are essentially a full scale CX agency, customer experience agency in Web Spiders.
Got it.
When you come to SpiderX, of course, the starting point is having data of your enterprise and your customers in the first place. So, I would just correct you there that, with ChatGPT as well, scraping is really not the core value add. I mean, even before ChatGPT, scraping or gathering data was a solved problem, that was already resolved by Google and lots of companies. But really, it's applying intelligence on that data to understand that data, what it means. Because traditionally, IT has been more of a like what we call CRUD, crude operation. You input, you output. You just input data, you reassemble the data and output, but the system can never understand what it means. And with SpiderX, what we do is in real time, it understands the voice conversation that goes on either between a human and an agent, and sometimes between an agent and an agent. And that's really the value add of AI is understanding that data, not scraping in the first place. I think scraping is already a resolved challenge.
Right. No. Oh, of course. I think ChatGPT, though, like on a scraping level, it's a bit more liberal, right? Because in the end, it scrapes a bunch of sources of data. I don't think they have like partnerships with all of these
Yeah,
platforms. And I think the AI, like you said, deciding which one is the right one to scrape right off the
yeah,
request and so forth. I think
yeah.
that's huge value add. So I did had another voice AI agent company probably an hour ago on the podcast. There's a bunch of these companies right now. How is yours different? What's your main value point here?
So we are very vertical focused. So as an example for F&B, for hospitality, anyone without any knowledge can just go through a wizard kind of an approach, and have their sort of the front door, which is the reception, live via an AI agent in like 30 minutes, right, or less than 30 minutes. Same experiences for an auto dealership, similar experiences for recruiters who want the first interview, for an AI to take the first interview. And it's not fixed questions. So like based on what the other person responds, the AI interview, adapts how the interview goes, and invents its own questions. So all of our products are very vertical focused. So SpiderX is really focused on, it's a multi-sector voice AI solution, does not require you to be a developer. Saying that, we also have a developer sonar dev. We also have a developer toolkit. So other developers who want to take advantage of our low latency and our models, they can easily do that, and create their own solutions, or enterprise with their own developers and create their own solutions. But yeah, the vertical focus is really the key.
Right. And how do you decide which vertical is good? It's a typical product market fit problem. Like, do you have experience in restaurants, for example? Do you have experience in real estate yourself? How do you determine which one will stick the most to this market?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Charles. So the history. I'll be honest up here. The history of SpiderX is we actually got a call. So the one that you see, Dinio, is for the FNB there. We actually got a call from an existing customer, where we did a lot of CX services in Singapore, and they have like some of the most premium restaurants in Singapore. Pre-Michelin, Michelin star kind of restaurants. And he just said, Sid, this is the problem we have, is that we have one person at the reception, and that person really gets busy around 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we miss answering phone calls. Now what happens is that these are premium restaurants, these are not like quick service, and they miss out on business. And plus, it does not look good for our premium establishment to not pick up the phone calls. And the phone calls of a lot of things. Somebody calls in to say, hey, I'm 10 minutes late. Somebody wants to make a new booking, somebody wants to cancel, somebody might have a menu query. Sometimes you're getting a guest who might be vegan or vegetarian, and you want to make sure there are enough options. So they were missing out on all these calls, and that's how we understood FNB was an option. And of course, we were tracking the venture capital space, and we saw a lot of investments in the FNB space, and then we were getting this inbound from existing customers. So we understood that. Similar to auto dealerships, we signed customers. We did an expo, and we found a lot of the same issues. Booking test drives, answering questions. They wanted to be consistent. So some of it was self-learning, like in the hospitality use case, and some of it we got from how the market was responding. Right? We did events, and then we adapted our product to have specific workflows. So one of the key things in making these agents work is you need to integrate with their legacy systems, right? Like it cannot be on its own. It has to input output data from the booking system, CRM, ERP, etc.
Got
And
it.
we got that integrations in place. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And yeah, these agents, you charge a setup fee. I believe it's like $300, and then they pay like anywhere from 250 to $500 a month. Is it like an
Yeah.
agency service in which once they pay, they get like a dedicated account manager, and then most of it after that is software? What part is human on your side, on your agency side, and what part is automated and agentic?
So this is 100% agentic actually. The pricing that you see, $200 to $500 a month, is really for the minutes that they use from a voice AI perspective. So our cost model is, we pay per second or per minute, and essentially for each package they get a certain number of minutes of calling. And if they exceed that, then of course they bump up to the next plan. So it's more like a SaaS kind of a model, but it's usage based. So they only pay for the minutes that their business uses.
Got it. And that startup of yours is somewhat new, right? Or sort of that pivot to the agentic model. How is it working vs the typical agency model, which is very human heavy? What does your revenue look like nowadays? Is it like 10% with that one and 90% with the old agency model? But what does that look like?
Yeah, it's I would say it's right now, because it's relatively new business. It's more like two third, one third. One third is licensing, and two thirds is services. And we are seeing that flip to the point that licensing would become 80% over the next 2 years. And pretty much it's for large accounts. Like when you service larger accounts, you need professional services. That's something that uh, large accounts seem to need, right? From a training perspective, from an integration perspective, and smaller to medium sized businesses are happy, self serve entirely. Medium to large businesses tend to need professional services. So we will keep having about 20% professional services, but the bulk of our cost would be in research and development as we go forward.
Right, got it. And what prompted you to start that model and not stick with the pure agency model in which you hire humans, they deliver the service? Why did you actually launch something that's fully agentic? It seems you're sort of before your time, right? Before product market fit. Why now?
I think it was, I would like to say that I had this vision and I saw it all and all of that. But as I said, it really came inbound, at first. And Web Spiders has had an history of developing products over the last 20 years. So we've had more like three epochs of various products that we developed, we sold. As an example, we had developed an LMS, like learning management system for e-learning, more than 10 years ago. Then we developed a app platform for events, because events are a huge customer base for us. And so we've developed products, we've successfully had lots of large customers, like big banks like Wells Fargo, McKinsey, you name it, Charles Schwab. We've had big customers, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we've tasted the success of products. And then what we've done is, as this industry matured, we either sold the product to a firm, or we scaled it and adapted it as part of a third party solution. So we understand the product business, and this was more like we could see our existing customers, and that's the benefit of having experience. We are not really like just out of college and trying to set up a business. We've set up a business, we saw how the market was reacting, and we started building on it. And now, of course, this was much before the hype and euphoria of what you have right now. So we already have a very mature product in production, and that's helping us get more and more customers every day.
And what does the MRR look like on the SpiderX? Is it profitable? Is it around the 10K MRR right now?
No, no, we are way beyond that. We are way beyond that. And I mean, to give you a sense, our cost of product or gross profit, our costs are only about 10% of our sales. So most of our costs go on research developments and sales and admin. So we are profitable. Of course, we are making sure we are not over profitable. So we try and put back the money in events, in sponsorship, in product development. So like as I speak to you, I flew to London. I'm invited for one event, and then I'm speaking. We are exhibiting in two other events. So we're spending a lot of money back in expanding across Singapore, US, India, and UK. So we don't want to keep too much of the money back in the balance sheet. And we want to be really aggressive, both raising funds and putting back the profits that we generate.
But SpiderX is only like 2 years old, right?
2 years, yeah. It's
But
live.
it's
It
quite
was live
impressive to be
yeah,
like at 20, or let's call it 50K MRR at your level.
yeah,
Like, how did you get
yeah.
to market so fast? Did you sell to existing clients, your existing network, or grew it from scratch?
No, existing clients are only a very small part of that, but I think is basically experience of understanding businesses, right? So it's the because of our background, we understand how businesses operate, and we were not like starting in one city or one country and then expanding to others. Because of my agency experience, we already had contacts and experience of how to run business in multiple countries. So it's like we started with three countries. It's very unusual, but that's because we have been doing that for 20 years. So I don't need market validation in the US and then move to UK and then move to Asia. It was more like it's all at one go. And that's also a
Right.
big advantage. Yeah.
And your GTM, you named conferences, right? Like what else is part of your GTM playbook? Do you do cold calls, cold email, LinkedIn outreach? How do you bring in clients in?
Yeah. So one is, of course, we are in that Meta Google model. We spend money there. But then instead of doing cold calling, we have the AI actually attend the calls and AI make the calls. So the outbound, there's no human, it's just AI. And so our front door is manned by AI. When you get emails, even if we are sleeping, like in a traditional model, you would need lots of people in each time zone. But right now, the moment you email, the moment you make a call, the AI starts engaging, understanding what you need. If it's straightforward, it gives you a quote and you can close the deal. If you have additional questions, it comes as a request for quote to the humans rather than an inquiry, because it's a long back and forth. You get an inquiry, you set up a time, you do a call, you know and that 1 week process is compressed in 7 minutes. And that's
Yeah, I
also
love that.
helping us scale up.
And what are you paying for these outbound AIs? The guy I spoke to this morning, the AI voice, I think was, yeah, charging around like 10 cents per minute, something like that. Like what's the cost per minute for your outbound AI agents? And how much meetings do they book per hour? Ultimately, what's your cost per lead with that channel?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So uh, our cost per minute depends on which country, right? So because the models that we use, and also depends on what models are you using. If you're using the traditional models of OpenAI, etc., then they are more expensive. If we use more open source and native models like Llama or Mistral, they are cheaper. So the cost can be very, it can be anywhere from 5 to 6 cents a minute to 50 cents a minute, depending on how you are engaging and the complexity of the bots. But to answer your question on cost per lead, I would say we average about, all, like for example, in events, we average about $500 per lead in physical events, like the one, and that includes all our traveling costs and setup and everything. In digital leads, it's more like $100, $90 to $100 a lead on an average. Uh,
Right. So let's say that it's, yeah, let's call it 10 cents a minute, right? So like that's $6 per hour. So the agent needs to call like yeah, like for 5 hours or 6 hours nonstop to get one lead.
No, no, it's not one lead. You don't call. You would get the lead. You would get a. I mean, there's a dialer that connects, right? So the dialer would try to get you thing, and only when you connect does the AI activate.
Yeah.
Before that, it doesn't activate. Uh,
Yes.
so you follow a very natural cadence, and we usually don't do like cold calling in the sense that it's permission oriented calling. So we
Okay.
so the AI would actually email and then would text that I'm going to call. They have shown an interest using our marketing material. And because most of the countries we operate in have a strong law and regulation in place in terms of unsolicited calls. And plus, I don't pick up unknown numbers, and I don't want to hassle and harass people of calling them without their knowledge and permission. So we don't support that model of bulk cold calling.
Right. Some people still do it, right? Like, oddly enough, if you are in a very specific niche and you pre-filter the list to pre-identify a problem, right? You just don't call anyone under the sun, right? But I think that could warrant like a cold call out of thin air is still a gray zone, right? Like even if there's still laws, they're not very much enforced. I used to own a call center with 200 employees back then, so talking from that level of experience. And I do think another cool concept for my podcast would be like to straight up call people out of the blue and be like, hey, do you have time for a podcast right now? My AI, right? And the AI would just ask them like 6 questions that are very relevant to them, and that could be the podcast. And my cost per podcast would be around $3, which is pretty good. And I could automate the full publishing process. Now, I want to talk a bit more about your background, right? Because you said you were always entrepreneurial on your side. At what point did you knew that you were successful? At what point did you knew that okay, I'm set now, I'm good, or has that point not even come?
I mean, I mean, you know, of course, when I started, it was 1994, 95, right? And
I
um,
was born that year.
yeah, yeah, I started in 95, and there was no concept of losing money. Every month had to be profitable. There was no, like, the modern concept of spending $1.6 for $1 that you earned was just not introduced to us at that moment. There was
And you were
nobody.
still in India at that time, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So we never knew that concept of losing that much money to earn. So it was always profitable. There's not a that was never a question. Right now, of course, as I say, it doesn't matter what you did even last month. Customers don't care whether you've been working for 10 years, 20 years, or 2 years. They just care about the product and the fact that how good and beautiful the UX is and how easy it is for them to accomplish their goals. So right now I'm looking at, really, there's a golden run ahead of next 12 years, which I think is, at least I think, the final epoch or the final frontier. Uh, because I don't know whether most of us in our lifetimes are going to experience any other such significant development. They well maybe, but it doesn't look like, we've always already seen social and mobile and of course internet and PCs in the first place. So we want to make sure that the next 12 years, before AGI sets in fully, we absolutely leverage, as a sector specific AI apps company. We are really about AI apps for customer experience. That's what SpiderX is.
Yeah, I think we'll experience like more of these gigantic booms, right? Another one would be
Yeah,
Neuralink, like
yeah,
just being neurally connected to that
yeah,
AGI.
yeah,
And I think that's as far as your brain and my brain can think of it right now, because obviously there's a bunch of booms, but I
yeah,
don't think our brains are smart enough right now to think about like the future, right? So, but yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely the most exciting one for me, like a guy that was born in 94 is the first boom that I'll be experiencing as well, right? Because the internet boom,
it's
I was
already
competing
there.
against a whole bunch of folks that had been like 10 to 20 years in that space, right? And they
Yes,
were probably wrecking the shit out of me because I wasn't as experienced. I learned entrepreneurship on the fly. I still have 10 years as an entrepreneur, by the way, but the first real boom that I'll be experiencing, I think, will be AI. And think it's absolutely primordial that people jump on that one, right? Like imagine just creating your own little army of AI agents. What do you think will happen to the job market? Because just to add one spice to that question, it's like imagine a world in which people are neural linked and others are not neural linked, or people using AI and not using AI. I still think there will be continuous mega booms, but the players at the top will keep getting smaller, the ones that will have access to these mega booms. If I would have to make a prediction on the future, which means that yeah, the 1% will become the 0.5%, then the 0.2.5%, and I think the rest of the market will really much not have that opportunity, maybe suffer a bit more, but definitely not have the same opportunities. What do you think about that?
yeah. There are a lot of people predicting what will happen. Of course, for me, the only way to know what will happen in the future is to watch the present, because that's what I know, and also look at the past. And so if I look at the past and I look at what's present, is that we are definitely entering an era of resolving issues. For example, healthcare has never been better in terms of the range. If you talk about mortality rates, if you talk about lifespan, has never been better than today. If even if you compare to like 50, 60 years ago. uh, and what we've seen is whenever there's been a sort of a major epoch, job market has actually increased. So if you just carefully see every revolution, it initially shows that okay, there were some people losing jobs, but overall it was a massive leap forward. So if I were just to learn from history and watch what's going on, you can only expect jobs to increase, right? And I know there are a lot of sort of big figures, or I think Bill Gates and others who talk about, oh, people won't have enough to do and they will work 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And I think that's kind of a I don't agree with that, because humankind, as we all know, is not an animal. Like an animal typically eats food and rests. If you notice any animal, that's how they are structured. And I think as a species, if you were to read that book, Homo sapiens, right? They only talk about how the ambition of humankind constantly expands. So even though we might not do the traditional kind of work, but I think human ambition will expand, which means that we will have more work opportunities rather than less.
Do agree with that. Especially at the top, I think yeah, innovation levels all boats, right? Like the rising tide levels all boats. I do think that people at the top do benefit more, but also they're harder to please, right? Because we already have like super nice lives and somewhat prestigious and comfortable lives. So yeah, I think yeah, like the 1% will work more, and I do think others may find a hobby that is personally pleasing, right? Now the big trap is like, what will be that hobby? Knowing that most people nowadays are hooked to TikTok, porn, and all kinds of toxic things, that
Mm.
actually makes them unhappy over time.
Yes.
Let's hope that like there's like healthier habits, right? I do think that entrepreneurship is part of that category, physical activity, so it'll be an interesting future.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in it's a podcast, so I'm just going a little bit off topic here, in the sense that I'm a big believer in sports as a means of joy, because any kind of sport, like a physical sport, outdoor sport, not only brings joy, it brings camaraderie, it brings health, and of course, it makes good use of our time. And I think the world would be a lot better if more people played any kind of sport. And I've seen that changing lives. And I think, of course, if people have more time to play sports, any kind of sports, that'll be for the better.
Yeah, balancing neurochemicals, right?
Yeah,
Dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, developing
yeah,
grit as well. I think it's very important that we don't get away
yeah,
from that part of our human nature and just like get
yeah,
fully digital, right? We are our bodies, our mind, and vice versa. Sid, where
yeah.
can people find out more about you?
Say again.
Where can people find out more about you
Yeah,
and your
so
company?
of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You can search me, my Siddharth Jhunjhunwala. Email me at sid@webspiders.com. Also on Twitter, all the usual suspects. You will not miss me if you just search. You will not miss me.
All right,
Uh,
so that was
yeah.
Sid and Charles for another